If you do not know the song, I'm not going to sing it. I've been singing it for the last week and a half. I put it the first day, last Monday. Your devotions for KCC started off with me throwing out a shout out to Houdini, which is a group, not The Magician. It's a early 80s rap group. Y'all probably have never heard of them. They've had a few great songs, but one of them that I love that my youngest, Eli, actually has as his playlist, and he sings this thing every time you say the word friends. My daughter immediately goes to the TV show. Eli immediately goes, "Friends, how many of us have them?" I wasn't going to sing, but I decided to sing. And my wife just said, "I thought you weren't going to sing." We're in this sermon series of Proverbs that we're calling the wisdom of God, where we're trying our best to gain a new wisdom, to gain more wisdom, to get this discernment, this understanding of what's going on in life. And in chapter 1, after Solomon launches this introduction statement that we looked at last week, that the fear of the Lord is the beginning of all wisdom, and we broke that down, would you like to guess what the very next topic is? Friendship. The influence of those that are around us, our companions, peer pressure, and so much more. But guess what? This isn't a subject that just applies to young folks. Typically, when we talk about you need to make sure you choose good friends, we think of things that we tell our children. Make sure that you're hanging out with good people. Make sure you're hanging out with nice folks. If they're mean to you, if they're bullying you, don't hang out with them. We think about this when we're teaching our youngins, but can I be real with us adults here, folks? We need to hear this lesson too, because some of us as grown folk have the worst companions in the world. Can I get an amen on that? Some of us as adults have friends that we call, or people that we call friends, who are horrible choices just because of the way that they can bring us down, they can drag us through the mud, and they're just not the wisest choices of companions. So, real quick, does anybody know what you call a group of friends who enjoy and love mathematics? Algebros. What do you do if you're walking through the woods and your friend gets bit by a rattlesnake? You quickly start trying to find a new friend. Oh. Preacher jokes, ain't they awesome? For real though, how do you define a friend? When you hear this word friend, how do you define a friend? And I think it's very important how we defined what a friend is, because I think society these days, I really don't think we understand what true friendship is all about. A friend, you ready for this? A friend is someone who knows all about you and still wants to hang out with you. A friend is someone who knows every detail of your life, good, bad, and indifferent, and they still love you anyway. A friend is someone who steps in when the world steps out. A friend is someone who never gets in the way unless you're heading in the wrong direction, and then they will stop you in a heartbeat. Y'all know I'm famous for throwing a shout out. I want to give credit where credit is due. A lot of today's points come from a book called Don't Be Dumb, The Wisdom of Proverbs Today. This is a book by Tommy South, and Tommy actually has a chapter entitled Don't Be Dumb About Your Friends. It is a chapter I think more of us need to read. Don't be dumb about your friends. Again, that book, Don't Be Dumb, The Wisdom of Proverbs for Today by Tommy South. I'm borrowing a lot of the stuff. I want to give credit where credit's due. There's an old saying that suggests you can judge a man by the company he keeps. Have y'all ever heard this old phrase? That you can judge a man by the company he keeps. In other words, if I look at you and I see who you hang out with, that tells me a lot about your wisdom, your character, your demeanor, your mentality. And there's a lot of it. We often choose people, we hang out with folks who have the same values, the same interests, the same outlooks on life. And so if you know a person's friends, a lot of times you can tell a lot about that person simply by who they hang out with. That old phrase says a lot. You can judge a man by the company he keeps, but on the other hand, that saying ain't always absolutely true, because would you like to know the type of people Jesus hung out with? Sinners. Jesus went and hung out with prostitutes, tax collectors, who were the most evil, worst people in the world. They'd rather you hang out with a prostitute than hang out with a tax collector back then. Jesus hung out with the worst of sinners. So wait a second. Does that mean Jesus was the worst of sinners? No. One thing that we need to make sure we don't do, church, is we don't put ourselves in the same category as Jesus, all right? You ain't him. When people said that Jesus in Matthew 11:19 was a friend of tax collectors and sinners, this was actually spoken by his enemies as an insult. This wasn't intended to be a compliment. They were trashing Jesus in this because you're not supposed to hang out with those types of people. Jesus' reason for hanging out with those, the reason Jesus befriended sinners, is because he knew that who he was. He knew he could influence their life in a positive way. He knew that he would be able to make their life better. He would be able to leave them and have a positive effect on their life. Jesus wanted them to know of God's love for everyone, even the worst and most despised people. Jesus also knew that sometimes it's the people at the bottom of the morality ladder that are most often open for redemption. But that does not negate the truthfulness of that old saying that you can tell a lot about a person by the company he keeps. Unless you can judge a person's character, especially his or her wisdom, by the folks they spend time with as friends. Now, this saying that you can tell about a man by the company he keeps is actually not found in Proverbs. But I think the wise old man Solomon would agree with that quote. Solomon had quite a bit to say about friendships, and one of the absolute main things he emphasized was that few things in life affect or shape you more than the people you hang around. And I agree 100% with that. Nothing shapes you in life more than the people you spend the most time with. So therefore, it certainly pays to be wise about our friendships. So I want to talk for a minute about what real friendship is. Today's world has confused a lot of things, and I think the meaning of friendship has been lost. We live in the age of Facebook, and half of the last several years where you have numerous friends. Did you know Facebook finally put a number of 5,000? You cannot have more than 5,000 Facebook friends. And I guarantee the vast majority, especially us older adults, and I like that I can put myself in that category now, us older adults, us more seasoned folks of life, would probably tell you 5,000. I don't even know if I've got true solid friends. I've got a lot of companions, but the people on Facebook, can I just confess, y'all? Can I confess, and please share this with, if you ever hear anybody, that preacher, I've seen so much drama on that social media app. But I get friend requests from 1,000 people, and I forgot how many social media friends I have on Facebook, and I don't know 3/4 of them. But I'm the preacher in a small community. If I don't like you on Facebook, then that means I'm a horrible man. I don't know why I made myself have a true Southern accent on that. We feel like, I like them, so I'm going to be their friend. And we have lost this idea of what friending is. And if you unfriend somebody on Facebook, the audacity. Unfriending them simply means, you know what, I don't connect with them. We don't connect that much anymore. It doesn't mean that we were best friends to begin with. If you were, then there shouldn't be a problem. This gives meaning to what clinical psychologist Roger Franzecki said. He described it as an illusion of closeness in a complex world of continuous partial attention. Wow. Without a doubt, this concept of friendship needs some clarity in our modern world. Perhaps the ancient world also needed that, because Proverbs 17:17 says this. Proverbs 17:17 says, "A friend loves at all times, and a brother is born for adversity." According to this proverb, the essence of friendship is the constancy of love, being there for someone in both good and bad. Notice the emphasis is at all times. A friend loves at all times. Real friendship isn't circumstantial. It's constant. Naturally, there can be different levels of friendships, and we get this based on common interests. You have common interest friendships are those loyal to the same sports program, same sports team, same ideas, same functions. You have common experiences, friends that you grew up with in high school or college, or the simple fact that we happen to like somebody. We get along with them, so we make them our friend. And not all of these friends have the same level of intimacy in our friendships. But out of all of our friendships, very few of the ones you call friends, let's be real, very few of them are actually Proverbs 17:17 friends. Someone who loves you at all times. And actually, you ready for this? That's okay. You don't need all of these BFFs, these best friends forevers. You don't in your life. What you need is a handful, just a few. Proverbs warns us that not everyone who self-identifies as your friend really is your friend. In chapter 18, verse 24 of Proverbs, we read, "A man of many companions may come to ruin, but there is a friend who sticks closer than a brother." A companion is not necessarily a true friend. The difference is that a friend stays with us regardless. Only one true friend is worth way more than a multitude of companions. You can surround yourself with a ton of folks, but if you only have one real true friend, dude, that's all you need. Proverbs chapter 27, verses 5 and 6 takes it a little bit further, if you would, by pointing out that true friends are faithful. They're faithful enough that they'll speak the truth to you even if it hurts. That's a true friend. Y'all check this out. It says, "Better an open reprimand than concealed love. The wounds of a friend are trustworthy, but the kisses of an enemy are excessive." In other words, even enemies can appear to be friends and multiply kisses all over you, just telling you things that you want to hear. A true friend will hurt your feelings. A companion will say, "Oh, girl, that dress looks good on you." Where a real friend is going to say, "Did you see your hips in that jank? That color does not match your fake hair right now. Those fake eyelashes, girl, I know you've seen them on social media. They're the dumbest things in the world. Don't do them. You look like you got men's hair clips on there from barbershops flapping on your eyes. Don't put that mess on there. Don't nobody need that. And if you have them out here today, yes, the preacher's talking to you. Take them off. Enjoy the beauty God gave you." Did he go there? Yes, he did. There's a big difference between causing someone pain and harming them. Hear me on this, church. There's a big difference between if I tell you the truth in love, it'll hurt. It'll cause some pain. But if I do things on purpose to hurt you, there's no friendship. There's no love in that. You see, there's a big difference. Enemies will multiply kisses. They'll tell you anything you want to hear. A true friend will tell you the truth out of love. Verse 9 in that same chapter adds this: "Oil and perfume make the heart glad, and the sweetness of a friend comes from earnest counsel." One way to determine who our friends are is to ask yourself, you ready? Very important. I need everybody, young and old alike, you need to remember this question. To really see if someone is your friend, this is what you need to ask yourself. When I need solid advice, when I'm going through a hard part of life, I'm in the manure pile of life right now, who do I need to ask for serious help? That's a friend. You wouldn't put it out on social media. You wouldn't put it out to just random folks. No. If you really need solid advice and you know the people, you have their picture in your mind right now, that group of friends just went from 5,000 on Facebook down to a small handful, didn't it? And that's all you need. You don't need a ton of folks. You just need a handful. In fact, to be honest, I've got a lot of connections. I dare say true friends who I knew won't judge me no matter what are not as many as you would expect. Proverbs not only gives advice about the friends we choose, it also talks about the friends that others need us to be. Look at verse 10 of that same chapter, chapter 27, verse 10. "Do not forsake your friend and your brother's friend. And do not go to your brother's house in the day of your calamity. Better is a neighbor who is near than a brother who's far away." Being a friend is being there for others, just like you need them to be there for you. One of the secrets to having a good friend, you ready for this, is being a good friend. One of the secrets of having a good friend is being a good friend. Now I want to turn our attention to the impact that all of this really has on our lives, the impact that our friends can have on us, and why choosing friends that will have a positive impact is so important. Proverbs cautions us to choose as close friends only those people who will have a positive impact on our lives. Some people, no matter how much we may like them, no matter how much they may like us, they simply ain't good. Can y'all agree with that with me, church? Some folks, no matter how much you might like them and want to be with them, no matter how much they might like you and want to be with you, some people just ain't that good. I saw a thing yesterday, and I showed it to Holly that said there's some people that you need to, that some people are investments in your life, and there's some people who are just bills. That's wise. There's some people you need in your life. You need them. They help you. They make you better. They guide you. They direct you. They will hurt you if they need to out of love. And there's other people that are just bills. They're just going to drain you. Some people, no matter how much you like them, no matter how much they like you, they're just simply not good. Proverbs gives several examples, including the first collection of wise sayings after the introduction of Proverbs 1 and Proverbs chapter 1, verses 8 through 19. We stopped at verse 7 last week with the fear of the Lord is the beginning of all wisdom. Let's look at verses 8 through 19. Solomon, the wise father, pleads with his son to avoid people who will influence him to go to places he shouldn't go and do things he shouldn't do. Wise man telling his son, there's certain people that are going to take you where you don't want to go, and they're going to make you do things you don't need to do. Listen to these words. So here we go, starting at verse 8. Listen, my son, to your father's instructions, and don't reject your mother's teachings, for they will be a garland of favor on your head and pendants on your neck. Sounds like a poster we need in our homes, don't it? Don't that sound like a poster you need in your doorway of your house? Listen, my son, to your father's instructions. Don't reject your mama's teaching, for they are a garland of favor on your head and pendants around your neck. My son, if sinners entice you, don't be persuaded. If they say, come with us, let's set an ambush and kill someone. Let's attack some innocent person just for fun. Let's swallow them alive like Sheol whole, like those who go down to the pit. We'll find all kinds of valuable property and fill our houses with plunder. Throw in your lot with us, and we'll share the loot. My son, don't travel that road with them or set foot on their path, because their feet run toward evil, and they hurry to shed blood. It is useless to spread a net where any bird can see it, but they set an ambush to kill themselves. They attack their own lives. Such are the paths of those who make profit dishonestly. It takes the lives of those who receive it. Now, this section of Proverbs speaks pretty drastic situations, let's be real. It involves robbing and killing. I've got some sketchy connections and companions, friends, if you would. I've got some sketchy ones, I'll admit that. But I've never had a friend say, hey, you know what? Just for giggles, let's go kill a man this weekend. Won't it be fun? Well, who do you got in mind, first off? No, I'm just kidding. There's some sketchy people. But this thing goes to extremes, robbing and killing. Come on, really? It doesn't have to be that drastic, church, for us to really learn that there are some people you should avoid. It doesn't have to be that drastic to know these are the ones you don't need in your life. Anyone who will entice you to do anything that's not wise, don't hang out with those people. Anyone who will entice you to do something that will weaken you or harm our influence as a Christian is someone we should be careful with associating with. Someone who entices you to do things that you feel you have to hide ain't the person you need in your life. Anyone that's going to try to get you to go places or do things that you don't think your mama, your grandmama, your boss, your church would be happy about ain't the ones to keep around. Verse 17 shows how foolish those people actually are, as well as those who throw in their lot with them. I love how it says, even birds don't fly into a nest to a net that they can see. So when it's obvious that our friends, quotation marks right here, please notice them. I'm using them properly, right, Joe? Our friends, if they're heading in the wrong direction, don't go with them. Don't fly in their net. If someone urges you to go somewhere you should not go or do something you know is wrong, don't feel like you know them an explanation. For some reason, we feel like, oh, man, I can't because, I got to go feed the dogs. I know, it sounds like I could do that real quick, but no, you don't know my dogs. They're slow eaters, and then I'm going to have to let them out about 45 minutes because, if you eat, you got to go to the bathroom. So I really, this sounds like a good time, but I probably shouldn't. Don't feel like you have to explain. If you feel like you have to explain, then they're not a real friend. If you don't want to do it, simply say, nah, I'm good. Thanks anyway. You don't have to explain. If they're a real friend who's good for you, they're going to accept your refusal and not reject you. But if they aren't a good friend, if they're not a real person in your life that you need to keep around, then you need to know that once and for all, and the sooner, the better. And again, this ain't just for the youngins. This is for some of us old folk too. There's some people in your life who are not investments. They're bills. And you need to get them out of the way. Far too many people have found themselves with the wrong people at the wrong place at the wrong time, and it can destroy all about you. Later in Proverbs 23, verses 19 to 21, the wise man expands the urging to choose the right kind of friends beyond those who will rob and kill. Check this out. He gets a little more pointed and touches home base a little bit faster with us. He says, listen, my son, and be wise. Keep your mind on the right course. Amen. Don't associate with those that drink too much wine or those who gorge themselves on meat. For the drunkard and the glutton will become poor, and grogginess will clothe them in rags. Whoa, 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 whoa. That's a little closer to home there, preacher. This proverb warns that not so much against those who participate in criminal activity, but really just those who participate in worthless and unproductive activities. They're headed toward poverty, this says, and the teacher pleads with his young protege, don't fall for the trap, don't do it. It's not unusual to hear someone resist this advice saying, but I can hang out with those people and not get hurt. I can hang out with them and not do what they're doing, and I'll be perfectly fine. But I need you to notice what verse 20 here says, church. I need to notice what verse 20 says. Don't associate with them. Wow. Don't associate with those who do these things. Why shouldn't we associate with them or be among them and do the worthless, or if we're not going to do the destructive stuff, why can't I just hang out with them? I mean, they make me laugh. Well, because being with them might lead you to falling. And you don't want to, in something you didn't intend to do, you actually end up. Peer pressure is a horrible thing. Because why would anyone want to be among those who spend their time doing worthless and destructive things? Eventually, they can wear you down. Another category of those to avoid that isn't mentioned specifically in Proverbs is actually our verse for the week. And I'm going to add verse 34 as well. In 1 Corinthians 15, the verse of the week is verse 33. Do not be deceived. Bad company corrupts good morals. Verse 34 says, come to your senses and stop sinning. For some people are ignorant about God, and I say this to your shame. Notice that Paul's first command is do not be deceived. That's a very important factor, church. Don't be deceived. There's some people in our lives who can make it seem like it's going to be the greatest adventure that we're going to be on, and they need us so bad. Oh, it's going to be so good. You need this. You need to relax. This is going to be so good for you. Don't be deceived. It sounds very much like something that you'd find in Proverbs, doesn't it? Don't be deceived. The general rule is bad company corrupts good character. My mama taught me that all the time. In fact, next week's newspaper devotion is on that topic. Bad company corrupts good morals. Bad company corrupts good character. Don't fool yourself by thinking otherwise. In context, Paul's words have to specifically be with associating with people who are challenging the reality of the resurrection of the dead. Paul urged the Christians to wake up, to stop sinning by buying into false religion, false ideas. It was because of their waffling on this all-important conviction that some have no knowledge of God, he said. We aren't likely to stand up for truths about which we're not thoroughly convicted or convinced. Whether they're about resurrection or drunkenness or anything else, we're not going to stand up and, even though some in society do, we typically are not going to be ones to stand up and fight for something that we disagree with. We're not going to stand in the battle lines with something we totally, this is just ignorant, this is stupid. But does this suggest that Christians ought not to associate with friends who aren't Christians? Who's questioning their faith? Absolutely not. Don't hear that now. That is not what it's saying. Since if we were to do that as followers, we'd never win anyone. Evangelism would be thrown right out the window. But it does mean, however, that if someone's goal is to tear down what we believe, you need to limit your association with them. That kind of person doesn't have our best interest in mind, or at least their understanding of what is best is warped. So I want to start summing up by looking at Proverbs 13, verse 20. Proverbs 13:20. The one who walks with the wise will become wise, but a companion of fools suffers harm. Let me say that one again. The one who walks with the wise will become wise, but a companion of fools will suffer harm. This verse takes us back to the idea that people with whom we associate shape our character. The ones you hang out with, the ones you talk to, text with, do everything with, the people you hang out with the most will influence your life whether you realize it or not. This truth is simple. We tend to become like the ones we associate with. Whoever you spend more time with is who you start becoming like. Being in the company with wise people, man, it has a way of rubbing off on you and making you a little bit wiser. Being in the company of fools and idiots can make you an idiot and make you foolish. We pay a high price for the ones that we hang out with. That's why Proverbs 14, verse 7 advises us to stay away from a foolish person. You will gain no knowledge from his speech. I don't know why it has to be his speech. It could be her speech too. Don't hang out with foolish people. If you do, you ain't going to get any smarter. Nothing worthwhile is likely to come from being in the presence of foolish people. So we should seek out the company of wise, godly people instead. There's an excellent Old Testament example of this principle in 1 Kings chapter 12, and I want to throw a quick shout out. I didn't do it earlier. I got a text this week from one of our lovely, beautiful couples, both of them talking about it. She is starting a women's Bible study on Tuesdays here at KCC. You'll hear more about it later, starting in October, I think is what the goal is. The husband is wanting to start breakfasts with men that we can get together and pray for each other for years. Y'all know, and I even talked to him about this recently, for years I've said everyone needs a Paul and everyone needs a Timothy. You need a Paul, a wise man who you can learn under. Come on. Ain't that the truth? We all need that. Someone who's going to make us stronger, better, build us up in faith. And then we need a Timothy, someone that we can then put our arm around and say, hey, I'm not here yet, but I do want to help you a little. Let me show you. So somebody who can influence you and someone you can influence. Man, I'm so excited, so looking forward to this. Now, 1 Kings 12 gives us a good example of all of this. Y'all ready for this? After King Solomon dies, his son Rehoboam ascends to the throne of Israel. And shortly after the coronation service, very big, large celebration, new king's in place, a large delegation of Israelites led by Jeroboam approached and pleaded for help. They asked him, dude, can you lighten the load? You see, your dad had given so much for us to do. The kingdom was expanding, but they were saying there's too much work. We've done too much too fast. Our supplies are getting limited. Our resources are plummeting. The people there's a toll on them. They are just wore slap out. I promise, if you will help us out and just lighten the load, slow down the building process, we will stay true to you. That's all we're asking. Rehoboam sends Jeroboam away. The new king sends him away, and he spent 3 days getting advice from counselors. He had 2 different groups that he talked with. Group number 1, the old men. He went to the old men and says, hey, this is what's going on. Y'all know what's going on. These old men stood with his father Solomon. They advised him, you know what, Rehoboam, this is actually right smart. You need to listen to them. Ease up their workload. They'll be loyal to you. You will have a group that you need under your care. Listen to them. Ease up their load. Everything's going to be a whole lot better for you if you do. That was the old heads. Then he went and talked to his buddies, his age group, his friends. And they said, man, don't be a wimp. Are you serious? You know what you need to do? You need to go back to them and say, look, I know y'all are complaining, so guess what? I'm going to make it tougher and harder. You got to build twice as much, twice as fast. Now I'm going to make it horrible for you. The yoke, if you thought my dad was bad, you ain't seen nothing yet. Guess who he followed? The wise old men who said, dude, listen to them, ease up, they'll help you. Or the young bucks in his generation. He says, man, forget that. That's stupid. You need to go hard on them. Show them you're the king, son. Yeah, you're the boss. You need to get pumped up. He listened to the young bucks, and guess what happens? The kingdom splits. It was a strong example of someone who took the wrong advice. The kingdom, the whole kingdom, split. You have the north and the south now, and they remain that way until they both end up in separate exiles. Rehoboam refused to listen to wise people, and he chose to listen to the fools his age who led him to disaster. There's no question about it. Whether you're a king or a kid, your friends will exert a powerful influence. They will shape you for life, for good or ill. You know, there's a scene at the end of Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade when Dr. Jones finally manages to enter the chamber where the Holy Grail, the cup that supposedly Jesus drank from at the Last Supper, had been hidden for centuries. There he encountered this old knight who had been left in charge. Before the knight could reveal to Dr. Jones which of the many cups in the room were the actual one that he was seeking, they're interrupted by the Nazi sympathizer who wanted the cup for the supposed magic powers. Scanning the array of cups, the Nazi guy grabs the wrong one. It's beautiful, it's elaborate, it's adorned this one that he took. He drank from a fountain which along with the cup was supposed to give you eternal life. Rather than living forever, he began to age at warp speed and disintegrated into a pile of dust. Y'all remember this? If you've ever seen that movie, y'all remember that? Awesome. But this is the point I loved. You can't help but laugh. Looking on with a deadpan expression, the ancient knight responded, "He chose poorly." Sounds like Terry Compton, doesn't it? Can't you see TC sitting there going, he chose poorly. I love it. Is that type of mentality is such an understatement that it's impossible not to laugh. That is the understatement of all understatements. He chose poorly. But here's the point. We will have many opportunities to choose friends. You can choose friends who will lift us up and help us be a better person, or we can choose those who will lead us into a direction that neither we nor God want us to go. It's up to us to make sure we don't choose poorly when it comes to friendships. Proverbs implores us to choose our friends wisely and promises that he who walks with the wise becomes wise. So what I need all of us to do today and over the next few days, it's going to take more than today. I need you to look at your friendships, look at your closest relationships, and ask this question. Is that person wise and godly? Are they leading me closer to heaven? If not, then we might want to try to start pulling back a little bit and limiting our influence and allow God to give us a better direction. I also encourage all of us to build stronger friendships by being a wise and godly friend. Of course, the most important friend we need to have is Jesus, no doubt. Jesus is the perfect friend who will always be there for us. He always has been. He always will be. And Jesus will always lead us in the right way. He's the example we should follow. Because Jesus Christ never fails. He never gives up. He never runs out on us. Can I pray for our friendships? God, help us. Father, you know the people that we hang out with, and you know some of them are awesome, they're wise, they're helpful. God, you know we got some folks in our lives that we spend too much time with. God, we need your help. Help us to surround ourselves with wise people that we can become wiser. Help us to limit, not just cut off. That's cruel. That's not helpful for their spiritual life either. But Father, help us be willing to say no. Help us to be willing to not go to places or spend more time that's needed in situations where we're not being encouraged, we're not being built up, we're not being made better. So Father, make us whole, make us wise under the companions that we surround us with. Help us. Lord, as we come to you right now in a time of offering, of communion, of pouring our lives into you, we really need you to pour into us the wisdom, the discernment, the understanding that you alone can give. In the perfect name of Jesus, we pray this together. Amen.